Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show, where we talk about all components of business and how to utilize them for exponential growth. My name is Athin Cassiotis. I'm a business growth expert where I help business owners grow and scale to create wealth and freedom. And today, I have an awesome guest. Her name is Hailey Rowe, and she is a marketing and sales coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. She helps service-based business owners, especially coaches, build out their client attraction process, get more time back, and boost sales without being held back by social media overwhelm. And she shares her fast framework, marketing and business tips in a Health Coach Nation podcast and in the Marketing Hub Facebook group. And she's been named as one of the top 25 coaches in Chicago, one of the top 6 business podcasts for health coaches. And since 2010, Hailey has worked in the coaching industry and in business development marketing for startups. And Hailey's philosophy is you can have an amazing service and impact to make, but without a strong mindset and a sales and marketing plan, your business will remain a hobby. Welcome, Hailey Rowe, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome show for everyone watching and listening today. So you're a very successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us about you and your journey.
Yeah, so I got started pretty young when it comes to personal growth and entrepreneurship. I was 16 when I started my first little business, and I put it in quotes because I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but I got a bunch of different certifications for coaching, and I ended up getting my bachelor's in entrepreneurship and studying at Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles for college. And I knew I wanted to do something with entrepreneurship. I knew I wanted to help people with personal growth, but I just didn't know what I wanted it to really look like yet. And so after college, I ended up getting getting work in business development and marketing for startup companies. And they happen to usually be wellness companies. So like I worked for an algae company and a coach certification company and all sorts of things. And so I loved it, but I kept telling myself, I also felt very much out of place because I was this new college grad and they were giving me tasks working at this startup that I did not feel qualified to do yet. So they were like, yeah, we need to hire people, and yeah, we need the website to look really good. And yeah, we need, how do we market? Like, can you write some copy for this? And so I was feeling like you are just thrown into the abyss and you're expected to produce things in entrepreneurship and working at a fast-paced startup without really, you're just figuring it out as you go. And so I loved that experience because it taught me how fast-paced entrepreneurship could be. And I was on a team in that scenario. So I wasn't a solopreneur having my own business at that time. So it gave me like a good feeling of what do you need to be looking out for if you are going to be an entrepreneur. And so, but I told myself I wasn't ready to have my own business. I was like, oh no, this is already so much of a load. I could never do this all by myself. And in 2017, the day after Halloween, the startup that I worked for was facing a bunch of delays from being able to open because there was just a couple things with where they were located and the city regulations and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the entire team was let go on one call. And I realized at that time, well, if entrepreneurship is going to be what I ultimately want to do, and I thought that this path of working in startups was safer or that, I was more secure, I realized that wasn't true. That was not the case. And I might as well just get started in my own business and figure it out because that's kind of what I was doing at these startups when I was working there. So that's what I did. And I've been doing it ever since. I started a podcast called Health Coach Nation. And I originally just worked with health coaches on growing their business. And then since then, I've expanded my niche. I've worked with all sorts of different service providers. I have, I do the LinkedIn lead gen services, et cetera. So it's expanded a lot since 2017. But at the time, you just have, I just got started and picked a niche and went for it and have been doing it ever since.
Yeah, awesome. Amazing story there. And great that you got some experience there. And I can definitely connect with the story because I did my MBA and majored in entrepreneurship and strategic management. And then you're sort of, working out how you can fit it all together. And then, you just got to give it a go and trust yourself. So love that. And yeah, making things happen since then. So great story. So, marketing is a big topic these days, especially with what I'm hearing with a lot of people coming out of, where post-COVID now, things are sort of a bit uncertain, right, in the market and everything like that. So talk a little bit about what's sort of working. What do you think's some working in marketing, right, especially for coaches and service people today?
What's working right now?
Yeah.
Well, a couple things. I think that one of the things that is working is being real and adding a personal touch, because we're seeing right now a lot of changes with technology and being able to use AI and, all of that. And I think that sometimes people just want to talk to a person, and experiences with your service or product are becoming more and more important compared to just having the nuts and bolts of the offer as it's a software, or it's a course or something like that, because information nowadays is a dime a dozen. Anybody can get it. So I think what's really working now is if you can create an amazing experience, connect people, build a community, build a relationships, and use personal touch in your marketing, write a handwritten thank you card, things like that, that goes far, because it helps you stand out, because now a lot of people are automating things and it is becoming more and more just technology based. And so I think if you can do something with a personal touch, that's amazing. I also think what's working is not just relying on social media posts and or social media for your business. So in other words, I had a former Facebook group a while ago. It had 4,400 members or something like that. And sadly, my Facebook got hacked at one point, and my whole page, my business page, had over 7,000 people, and my group that I had worked up to build, it all got deleted. And I was really grateful that I didn't just rely on that, and that I had an email list, and that I had multiple platforms, and that it wasn't my only putting all my eggs in one basket. So even though I do think it's important to focus in your business and not try to be everywhere all at once if you've never been consistent with anything, but I do think it's important to really be building an email list. Even though people say, oh, that's outdated, or people don't check their emails, I still think it's really important. And it's important to not just rely on one platform.
Yeah, awesome. Great tips there. Completely agree with that. Spreading the risk, right, in what you do, because what happens if you get hacked, Facebook goes down, they close down your anything can happen there. So love that. The area there, and a lot of people are talking now about storytelling and things like that into what we do in marketing. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe our story and how that could be woven into our marketing as well?
Definitely. So if you are a business owner and you've been posting a lot of tips or educational posts and things like that, and you find that people aren't really resonating, it's important to use storytelling and analogies and things like that, because it allows you to actually shift beliefs and or drive something home more so than just telling. So a story shows and allows your audience to relate to you on a deeper level, compared to just saying, here's what you're going to get in this program. Here's here's the features. Here's what's included. So when you're using storytelling, you want to think about, what are the key pain points my audience is going through? What have I gone through? What took me a long time to figure out? What do I wish I would have known in the beginning of my business? What am I so glad I know going forward? And what's kind of the why behind what I do? And you can make your own brand story based on that. So it usually starts with something like, even though there was a time when, insert rock bottom, where you were at the beginning, where your clients would relate to you. I realized, and then insert your epiphany, or what had to change, or what, got you in a better position. And that's why now I insert what you do now, your mission and why you do it. And I think that's the simplest way to put a story. Obviously, there's more, there's Donald Miller's hero's journey that goes into way more detail. But the way that I find it easiest is also use your day You could probably have a story every single day based on just what you're going through in the day. So in other words, if I had a conversation with a client today that I could see a lot of people relating to, or a struggle they had that we talked about and solved, I might decide to just say, hey, today I was on a call with a client, and, obviously you may want to say recently and respect their privacy and not say the names or anything, but I was talking to a client and they were struggling with XYZ, and what they realized in the session was blank, and now going forward they're doing blank. And if you struggle with this too, insert call to action or freebie or question that they can engage back with you with. So yeah, I think stories can be better. And same thing with, like, if you're talking about coaching, and I'm just going to use that as an example. Let's pretend your service is coaching. A lot of people don't really understand what your service is. So you just saying it's coaching, and I ask you questions and we get you next steps and stuff, using an analogy or using a story to illustrate what it really is way more helpful than just saying, like, coaching is defined by blah, 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 right? So like, it's like, imagine you have a goal or you have a destination you want to get to, and you don't really know how to get there. And you found yourself starting and stopping and starting and stopping, or taking detours and getting unfocused. What you do with a coach is you have like a GPS, and you plug in the destination you want to go to the GPS, and you're taking a direct path, less detours, more focused, and you have support and gas in the tank because somebody who's done it before is coaching you, mentoring you, etc. That would be maybe not the best example, but that's just one I came up with on the spot.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And so true. Completely agree. The power of stories, and I think even in ancient times, right? In these cultures, that's how information was shared, right? It was through stories. So I think we're wired for it, and I love the analogies that you can put anything into it, into your day and everything like that to really connect with people on that deeper level. So yeah, love that. And I know you focus a lot on LinkedIn now, and it's growing now, especially, for B2B type marketing, but, just generally. So let's talk a bit more about LinkedIn. So what are some key things, that we need to be focusing on? Because every platform's a little bit different there, to make sure that we're putting our, best foot forward, for success on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is a networking platform. So people expect networking. And actually, I think that's how we connected originally. So if you're using the platform, you want to be sending out connection requests every week, and you can do up to 800 per month if you really wanted to. And what I would do is decide, how do you want to use LinkedIn? Because you could use it for partnerships and forming referral partnerships. And you could use it for getting speaking opportunities or other visibility opportunities, whether you want to speak at summits or locally, or for companies. Or do you want to use LinkedIn more just to connect with your ideal client, because your ideal client is a certain type of professional or business owner? So you have some options, and it can be for B2C too, if you want to network with partners or referral partners, so you can use it if you're B2C, but if you're B2B, you actually can use it to connect directly with your ideal client, most likely, because they're probably on LinkedIn. So I would say you have to be consistent with expanding your network. That's number one. And then number two, you want to take the right approach with connecting with your network. So typically, after somebody accepts your connection request, you can message them. Now, what I don't recommend is sending a long automated, really salesy message. What I do recommend is, if it is for collaboration, saying hello, noticing that you guys have a similar audience, and seeing if they're open to exploring or connecting and exploring collaborating. Or if it is a potential client, maybe you're more so going to ask a question to see what kind of content do they want to see on your LinkedIn, what would be useful to them when it comes to the topics you talk about, because you're looking to get some feedback or something like that. So do use LinkedIn to build connections authentically, ask questions that are not offensive or pitchy or, whatever, but do ask questions to engage with people. And the last thing I'll say about LinkedIn too, that I think a lot of people get confused about is they think, oh my gosh, I have to be super stiff. I have to be wearing a blazer in every post. I cannot talk about my personal life at all on LinkedIn. And that's not true. So yeah, you don't really want to post like a bikini photo probably on LinkedIn, but if you have something personal you did with your family, or you have, like, one of my friend's most viral posts was him talking about how he adopted his 2 girls and how that was such a, life-changing experience for him. It has nothing to do with his business, but it got the most virality. So don't worry about, needing to be super robotic and stiff on LinkedIn. You can still post with a sense of humor or something personal, things like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love the different elements of the focus. I think that's, really important thing for everyone there, right? It's like, make sure you've got your goal. Like, what do I want to focus on LinkedIn? And then, connect with people genuinely, authentically there, and how you can add value and everything like that. So I love that there. And obviously, I know that our profile is really important of how we, have that set up, right? We want to make sure it looks decent, because then people want to connect with us. And, there's things like creator mode and stuff like that. So do you want to maybe share a little bit more about like our profiles and what things we should have maybe as a minimum on there, to make sure then people will go, oh yeah, I'd love to connect with Hailey or Athin or whatever, because, they seem nice, great to connect with.
Yeah. So you definitely want to have a smiling profile photo of your face, not one of those photos where it's like the profile, but there's nobody in it, right? You want to also have like that little short bio right underneath your name that has a key result you provide, or like in 1 second, someone should be able to read that and understand how you help, and who you're for, right? So some kind of result. You could also put in there that, like, if you are a podcast host or you are an author, or there's something that establishes credibility, you could share that. Like, so if you have a top 10 podcast or whatever, be sure to put that in there. If you don't, obviously you could still say podcast host, if you want to be findable for your podcast. And then you want to put something maybe that is either like a call to action. Sometimes I've had people actually put like, check out my, or like ask, but I don't like this. Sometimes put a call to action of some kind. So I don't do that, but some people do. So if you have some kind of freebie or something you can mention, that's great. But if there's anything else you need to say about what you do, or like your title, you'd want to put that in there as well. So that little short one should just be the gist of how you can help, who you are, what you do, anything that establishes credibility. And then you can also have a link up in that top part of your profile. So a lot of people don't realize this, but when you click edit your profile, there's a way at the bottom to add a website freebie or link that you want to be right at the top of your profile. So definitely utilize that. If you have a free, you want people to book a free call with you, or you want people to go to your freebie or your general website, if you don't have anything like that yet, you could do that. And then you have your about section, which should mainly be a longer bio. So that one should share benefits you provide for people, your credibility, background, and then maybe at the bottom, some kind of call to action, but knowing that you can't put a link there. So you could put a link, but it's not going to be clickable. So just keep that in mind. And then you also want to have a recommendation section on your profile. So what that means is you can add sections to your LinkedIn profile, and this one would be one of the ones you can add. And that just means anytime you do a collaboration or you work with a client, you could ask for them to leave you a recommendation, and people will see that on your page. So it builds some social proof. And then you can also have a section called the featured section right at the top of your profile. And that's where you could pin your best posts. So like if you have a post that was a case study, or you have a post that you were sharing a really huge media platform you were featured on or something like that, you would want to put that in your featured section. And then the last part is you just have your work experience, which is kind of, if you're an entrepreneur, that's like the least important part. If you're a corporate and if you're trying to get a job and stuff, that's like the most important part of your profile. But as entrepreneurs, we can have our work experience be our company, obviously. and then put like any bullet points about what you do, where they could check out testimonials in your website, things like that would go in your work experience.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Always great to get those things in place and work, the system for you so that people want to connect there. Love that. Thanks, Hailey. So now let's talk about podcasting, because I know that, you've got a podcast as well, and I've been on yours recently too, which is great. So love, sharing there and helping each other out on each other's podcasts. And it's gaining a lot of momentum, from what I see, right? There's a lot more podcasts, a lot more people wanting to be on podcasts. You don't always have to have it your own or whatever. But let's just say people are wanting to start their own podcast. What sort of tips could you give to people that are wanting to do that?
Yeah. Well, you have to be consistent with it. So it took me, it's a long-term game. I didn't really market my podcast as much as I probably could have and should have when I first started it. But being consistent every week, like I started it and then I paused for a little bit and then I got really consistent and I did it once a week. And that was really when I started to see the change with my podcast. So you got to decide you're going to be consistent, because I think there's I forgot the stat, but it's like most podcasters do like 7 episodes or something, and then they just like stop. So most people don't last with podcasting. So you have to last, number one. And number two, you have to give it a good title as far as if you want to be searchable for certain things. So for example, when I first started, when I was just working with health coaches, and now I'm kind of like, I probably should have given it a different name. But at the time it was really good because that was who I worked with exclusively. Having the name Health Coach Nation in my title was great because health coaches would find me very easily. So make sure your title has something that your ideal client would be searching, and don't overthink it. Like literally came up with my podcast name in a day. And I see a lot of people just with the whole podcast process, they spend way too much time on every single step and they never actually get the podcast started. The other thing is, like, whatever you have to do to be consistent, two points. Decide is this going to be like the main thing for you? Like, do you want to be a podcaster and that is your thing and you're known for it and it's amazing and this is how you're going to monetize your brand and everything? If so, then okay, I will say, you should be really picky about the sound quality and blah, blah, blah. And if not, like for me, this is an additional channel for me. It's not like I'm trying to be Joe Rogan. So because of that, a lot of times what I have to do and what I do to keep my podcast going with my busy lifestyle is I do lives and then I repurpose them as a podcast. Is that perfect? No. Does that make the quality perfect? No. Do I edit out ums? No. Do I sometimes say I'm live and I'm answering questions in the comments and that won't make sense to somebody listening to the podcast? Yes. Okay. But I'm okay with that because that's what I have to do right now. That's what I'm committing to right now to stay consistent. So those would be a couple initial tips. I always have more. I have a whole training at haileyrowe.com/podcasting-tips. It's free. If you can't find the link for some reason, you can always DM me on Instagram, but that is a couple initial tips.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And completely agree with those points. And just to add the stats, it's less than 10% of podcasters get over 20 episodes. And less than 1% get over 100 episodes as well. So it's, most people, because it's the long-term game, it's that instant gratification, right? That is the problem with people. They're like, I haven't got clients in my first X episodes. It's like, this is about building your brand and connecting and everything like that over time, your authority. So great tips there. Definitely with the podcast. Consistency is really key.
Well, one thing I'll add, I don't remember the exact timing this happened, but I will tell you, because all I did for my podcast, really, I didn't send ads to it. I, wasn't really promoting it that much. I would maybe post about it sometimes, but that's as far as it went. But it took me about a year and a half before I would have people actually like booking discovery calls with me from my podcast. So I just want to be really like, could I have made that shorter? Probably, with being better about promoting and consistency and stuff at the beginning. Yes. But it took that long at least, to really start having people be like, oh, I love your podcast. I've been listening to your podcast. So think in terms of years, not in terms of weeks or months when it comes to your podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree. It took me a year or two before people were like, oh, I saw your podcast video or whatever like that, and wanted to do it. So it's definitely the game. But yeah, it can be very powerful in the long term for that. And my last little thing on that is it's not necessarily always about getting the clients directly, but it could also be doing partnerships and things like that, right?
Yeah.
You never know who you connect with, and there could be some synergy there and everything else that you interview. So
Well, and there's more. Can I add to that?
of
Because
course.
there's more benefits. You can use it for like pillar content. So in other words, if you have a certain FAQ about your program that comes up all the time, you could use your podcast as like the best place where you answer that and automate that, so that now whenever that question comes up, you can always share that podcast episode. And you can also use it to show your talent. Like, so if you wanted to coach someone live on your show to show coaching, or depending on what business, what service you do, it might depend. But if you could do on your show what you do with clients and show them how it works, or they could get the experience of it, it's a great marketing tool. And the last thing I'll say is it can open up a lot of doors. Like, so if I was trying to get hired for a speaking gig, and because they were able to go hunt down my podcast, listen to it, kind of see what I'm all about, it gave them a quicker idea of like, okay, I think she's can do this, right? And the last thing is you don't even know the opportunities that can come from it. So for example, I had Amy Porterfield's team reach out about her book launch and say, oh my gosh, we want to do a live with you about Amy's new book, which I was like, what? Like, I thought she was way out of my league, did not think she would want to ever do an interview with me. But I was able to interview her. And so you just don't know the opportunities that can come. And I hear a lot of people say, well, I want to start a podcast and have cool guests, but like, I feel like I'm not, they're out of my league. And my answer is you might as well ask, because even if you get one, it gets a lot easier to get other ones. And if you ask, what's the worst case scenario? They say no. Okay, well, you're in the same position you are now, but that's at least, but you're more confident and you're probably getting better at, putting yourself out there and all that. So there's definitely only an upside.
Yeah, definitely. It's like building the muscle at the gym, right? It's like the first time you do something live or whatever, you might not be the best, but the earlier you get started, the better you get. And yeah, I've had many big names, like Jay Abraham and Bruce Buffer and a lot of people as well. And yeah, just once you get the one, exactly like you said, it becomes easier. And just ask. It's that sales mentality, and we could probably talk a little bit about this as well, is about like, you got to be okay with rejection, people saying no. Like, it's not everyone's going to say yes, but most people don't ask. But it's a lot easier to get someone on a podcast than it is to get a meeting with them, like that. So, because you're providing value, making them look good, everything there. So love that. Yeah, all those tips that you've added as well. And let's talk about that mindset there in business, and obviously wanting to grow the business and sales like that now, and maybe put it in the frame of habits, because I think this is important, right? Or rituals, where I think we need to get into a mode on how we do things, so that we show up well, we say, we're confident and motivated, and we can, grow our business and things. So do you want to maybe give some tips about, yourself or some of your clients and things about what some daily habits or rituals we can do to be in that mode?
Yeah. Well, I think a couple things. One is you have to get really good as an entrepreneur at being willing to feel feelings. That's all it is. If you're afraid to make an ask, it's just because you're afraid of feeling rejected for a couple of minutes or a day or 3 days or whatever. And you probably already dealt with rejection before in some different frame of life. So it's not like you can't handle it. So I think it's really important to just say, what am I willing to feel on a daily basis in my business? And stop thinking that it should be fun all the time. It should be easy all the time. People should come to you. Like, there's none of that. Just let that go. Expect it to be hard. Expect there to be no's, etc. The other thing is, because then you're actually pleasantly surprised, because a lot of things go a lot better than you think when you're thinking worst case scenario. But also, I would say with habits, what really helps my clients and myself is we create a business protocol for them. So in other words, it's what are you agreeing to do on a daily or a weekly basis? What specifically is it? And, making sure you're tracking that. So for example, if you're saying, oh yeah, I need to post on social media every week, it's kind of vague, right? But if you give yourself a protocol, like if you're saying, okay, I'm going to commit to posting 3 times per week. And for one of the posts, it's going to be an objection busting post where I'm going to overcome a common objection. For one of the posts, it's going to be a storytelling post where I tell a story that gives value and a lesson. And one of the posts is going to be about my lead magnet or something like that. Suddenly, that on your protocol broken down becomes a lot easier to actually say, did I achieve this or not? And you can get consistent with that and build a habit around it. Versus, and where I see a lot of people also go wrong with this is they think, well, that's not enough. I want to say I'm going to post every day, but then they don't end up doing it. And then they feel bad and then they get defeated and then they, start and stop again. And then they never get consistent. So I always say, like, set a minimum baseline you can actually do. And it's fine if you think it's too easy. Let yourself think or if it's not enough, quote unquote, let yourself think that, but do it anyways. And then keep adding on or stacking on, because you want to feel successful to create more success, right? Like if you are constantly feeling like you can't stick to anything, you can't do anything you commit to, it's just going to perpetuate itself. Versus if you're like, wow, I actually did what I said I'm going to do, and you're going to keep doing that over and over, and you become the kind of person who always does what they say they're going to do, and they don't commit to things that they're not actually going to follow through with, then your business becomes a lot more predictable because you can count on yourself. And that is really important, especially before you have a lot of team members. You got to be able to count on yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Love that. So powerful in terms of getting to that zone, and love how it's all linked in, with the marketing a bit there as well, how you put it in, really, really powerful. And I think one thing that's linked to that as well, which I know you're well versed in, is time management. And a lot of people, maybe are like, oh yeah, but I've got all these things on or whatever like that. And how do I do all these things in my day? So do you want to maybe give a little tip around how we can be better with our time? In terms of strategies or tools or whatever it is there.
Yeah, definitely. So first, I always say, write a brain dump of all the things you think you need to do, obligations, things you want to do. Just put it all down on paper. And then from there, we want to look at that and we want to say, okay, which of these things, first of all, you have to know your goals before you do this. So make sure you know, like, what's your top business goal? What's your top personal goal? And maybe pick only like 3 so that you're not having 20 goals at the same time. And then you want to look at this list and say, okay, which of these things is going to move me towards my goals and is top priority, like a top goal-oriented thing on my list. And you want to star those. And then you want to say, which of these things is I need to do it, like I need to do my laundry, or I need to pick up my kids at school or whatever, but it's not really, it's just something I have to do. And that would be just a kind of a have to do column. And then which of these things do I not need to do right now? Like it's a good idea, but it might be like a someday item. And then, so what you want to do then is, okay, you have kind of a ranked priorities. You want to ask yourself, okay, how am I going to make time for the starred items, the items that actually move me towards my goals? And what people usually do is they just hope for the best. And that's the worst thing you can do. So what I recommend is you probably have your day ahead of you of what your appointments are, what, when you have to pick up your kids, etc. So put those on the calendar and then see where there's blank space. And if there's no blank space, well, then that's the first problem with time management. You're never going to get to your goal stuff if your whole life is just busy, busy, busy. So you either need to say, I got to carpool with somebody during the week for the kids, or I got to outsource my laundry, or I got to say no to laundry and let it pile up for 2 weeks and make a little time to do my business, or whatever it is. But that's the first thing, is find the blank space and then put in at least 1 to 2 of your key goal driving activities in your day. And where most people get this wrong too is they think, well, okay, one of my starred activities is update my website. But that's such a vague task. And that could take 4 hours, 8 hours. I don't even know. You have probably 12 pages on your website that you have to edit. So you want to break down the task into something that could probably take like 20 to 30 minutes. And that's it. And if it's not broken down that much, then you have to break it down more and put it on your list and start honoring your commitment. And if one of the things that I also hear is, well, I don't know how long that's going to take me. I don't know how long it's going to take me to write an email or whatever. Well, two things. One, you get to decide that. So you get to say, whatever I have after 20 minutes is what I got to send out. So good luck. Okay. That's an option. The other option is, okay, well then make buffer room. Give yourself extra time and figure out how long it takes you. Time yourself and you'll just keep getting better. But like, okay, if you're not sure, give yourself 2 hours to write 2 paragraphs of your email. And I bet you it won't take you that long. But give yourself that time so you can just start honoring your commitments. So those are a couple tips. I have a whole system broken down at haileyrowe.com/time planning. And it will give you my weekly planning system, but those are a couple of highlights.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for that. Definitely breaking it down and then putting it in so important there in the calendar. So let's talk a bit about coaching and mentoring now, because I know with me, I've got multiple coaches and mentors, and it's definitely helped me to fast track, where I'm at and get me to where I am now. And I'll continue to do that. I'd love to hear from your perspective, how important coaching, mentoring has been for you and, your business, is what it's helped for you to achieve.
Definitely. So I got my first coach, I think it was in 2017 when I was just really clueless. I'm like, okay, I'm starting my business. I'm scared. I need a community. And I even had business background. So I imagine for people who don't have a business background, I can't even imagine how scary it is to like have a craft and want to create a business out of it and not know like what you're doing at all. So I even had a background and I still needed a coach. So I tripled my investment with that coach. So that was my first sign of like, wow, cool. I think this could be a great idea. And so I also ended up partnering with one of my mentors as a business partner for 2 years. It was an amazing learning experience. We were very he's very visionary. I'm very step-by-step implement type of person. And so it was a cool partnership. I learned from that too, though, that I don't want to have a business partnership, and that's okay. And we're still like amazing friends, very dear friends. And he still mentors me from time to time. So there's that. I'm doing another coaching right now about scaling and systems and SOPs and blah, blah, blah. So it's just been a huge help to know that you're not alone and to work with somebody who is outside of the situation and can have a big bird's eye and is not in it like you are. Because sometimes I'll hear something reflected back and it was like, I did think of that, but I never actually wrote it down, or I never actually made a plan to like do that. So hearing it from somebody else, or just hearing them say it so simply, I'm just like, oh, duh, yes, I need to do that. So it just can be really helpful when you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, love that. Completely agree with you. So good to have that outside view, keep us on track and give us those different ideas that, we're not really thinking about there. So awesome stuff. It's been a very powerful episode today. Only so much gold that's been shared. And as we're wrapping up, just what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I guess the one piece of advice I would give is to commit to refining the actions until you hit the goal. So I call that massive action. And I think a lot of people know what that is in the coaching world. And basically that just means you're willing to refine until it works. And you're not just doing shiny object syndrome, trying a bunch of different things, setting a bunch of different new goals, giving up halfway through. It's set one main goal and keep refining until you get there. And being willing to evaluate along the way so that you can refine is really important, and not just beating yourself up because you're not at the goal. So focus on those systems instead of just the end goal, and be willing to refine.
Yeah, so true. Love that point there. So we connected through our networks where I learned about your awesome journey from, being an actress initially to, get into marketing and business, and now marketing and sales coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. Amazing woman. I'm sure you continue to help service-based business owners, especially coaches, build out their client attraction process, get more time back, and boost sales without being held back by social media overwhelm. Very grateful that we connected. Look forward to working with you. So Hailey, how can people find you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I'm at HaileyRowe.com, the Health Coach Nation podcast, the Marketing Hub Facebook group, and Hailey_Rowe on Instagram. And for anybody who wants that time planning system, it should be at HaileyRowe.com/time planning.
Awesome. Love it. So definitely check out Hailey on all of those there. It'll be in the show notes below to connect with her and get some of those good free stuff that she's got there too. Definitely knows her stuff in these areas. And I want to thank everyone for watching and listening to this show where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. If you want to grow and scale your business, you reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. And I completely agree with you, or do I? The only way who knows if you tune in next time. So until next time, remember that our business grows when we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So remember to design your growth and results.